not to like set expectations, but I hope you guys are ready for your favorite panel of the festival. Because that's what this is gonna be. Sorry, cheers. So I'd like to bring out our panelists. I don't know if you guys have an order you want to come out in. I'll just call you up. So please give them a warm Texas welcome. We have Richard Hicks. Hi, Richard. We have Jeannie. Is it Bacharach? Did I say it right? Bacharach. Jeannie. And we have Conrad, is it Wolf? I forgot to ask you guys this beforehand. Conrad Wolf, come on out. And then last but not least, we have Felicia Fasano. Hello. Give you guys a minute to get, I know, it's a big step. I
didn't know we were doing karaoke.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously at the end. We're saving it for the end.
Great.
Oh man, thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So we were chatting in the green room, and I'm not gonna bring that up. I swear. I was telling a few of y'all, I recently, and I promise you this panel is not about me, but I wanna share this short anecdote because it really informed me coming into this. So a few months ago, I was moderating a panel of authors about adaptations of their books that were made into films. And it was Angie Thomas, who had The Hate U Give, Julie Murphy, who had Dumplin', and then Sarah Shepard, who had Pretty Little Liars. And I asked them, right away, I was like, okay, let's get this out. Like, what is the biggest misconception your readers and fans have when it comes to your adaptations? And they were like, they all, like almost unanimously, they were like, that we cast the adaptation. They were like, we get so many complaints from fans. How could we dare cast this actor as this character? Like, they just went off, and I was like, it's you guys. It's you guys. So I'm excited to talk to you about your perspective coming from talking to these authors who, by the way, were like really like huge fans of their adaptations. So they were very positive. Like really loved the process. But anyway, we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about you. So you. So why don't we get started with, what is it, when you're looking at casting an adaptation versus like an original, script or what it might be, there's gotta be some differences in your process, right? Because it's a known property, it has fans, it has conceptions of what these characters are like. So how does that process look for you in terms of how it's different than your normal process? And anybody can start, or I can call on someone.
Well, I think...
It's on.
It's on?
You're good.
Okay. Thank you. This is why I'm behind the camera. I think it also depends on whether you're talking about a historical, real people.
True.
Because if you're doing something that involves real people, it's are we going to try to do lookalikes, or are we going to sort of create our own version of that person? And and I think depending on the storytelling and how important it is that you stick true to who that person was, how known they are. So like with The Dropout, obviously Elizabeth Holmes is a very recognizable character. It was important that we cast somebody who looked like her. When we got to George Schultz, who I think probably, other than, I think was probably the other character who people might recognize the most. We had a big discussion about that, and ultimately we cast Sam Waterston, who looks nothing like George Schultz. But it was about, at that point, we needed someone with gravitas, we needed someone with weight, and that was more important at that point than matching the person. So I think it really depends when you're dealing with real people, like what's a more important part of the story.
I think it's kind of a matrix of things. Like you weigh the essence of the actor and the kind of essential needs of the character and how much they look like them. And somebody might look a little more like them, but they are a different kind of person. So you want to go with the person who has something essential maybe. So you're always kind of trying to keep that in mind as you zero in who to go to.
Right, physicality versus characteristics or
Yeah,
qualities.
yeah.
Yep.
And then to tag onto that, the challenge for in League of Their Own was also that we were doing period. So also there's certain people feel very contemporary, and we were trying to keep, very true to the time of the 40s, and that was something else that we had to consider.
Yeah,
No facial work, no plastic surgery.
definitely that. No,
Harder and harder to find people, harder and harder to find.
Yikes.
we had the with Greece, that was the same situation, obviously with 1954, and I think we go into any process on any project sort of. There's a moment where we're vibing, we're getting a sense from the showrunner, like how heightened is this? What level are we looking for? How grounded is this? And with something like Greece, we were fortunate because we were liberated from recasting Sandy or something, these really iconic characters for the most part, but because it's a prequel, and so we had license to sort of create these new characters, but it was all led, the entire process was led with capturing the energy, the fun, heightened energy of Greece, but still having a sort of grounded, we always look to Stockard Channing's performances, Rizzo, of this really honest, really grounded sort of within this universe, but it was big Grease energy was what we tried to capture.
Big Grease energy.
Big Grease energy.
I love it.
That's good.
BGE.
Feeling that.
Yeah, t-shirt. That's awesome. Well, what about with, fictional characters like, Jeannie with Station 11 or The Last Thing He Told Me, or it wasn't in the program, but Conrad, I heard you say you cast Love Simon.
Love Victor. but
Sorry, Love
the-
Victor. I'm sorry. Same universe, different book.
Different love.
What's your sort of research, or what's your process like where you're, kind of finding out, okay, who's this character, and then sort of balancing that with the vision that the showrunner or the team has for the show?
For The Last Thing He Told Me, it was very easy because she was, Laura Dave was one of the producers. So we could always go to her with a question of what do you want most here? And so mine was pretty simple. Yeah.
With Station 11, I made the choice not to read the book beforehand, whereas my casting partner did read it. So we would kind of balance each other out a little bit. But I just sort of made that choice because I wanted to sort of come to it fresh. And, for Patrick, who created the show, I think it was important to carry over elements, again, characteristics of the characters, but, not feel, strong, what's the word?
Bound by them?
Bound
Yeah.
by it,
Beholden
and
to them?
beholden,
Yeah.
and, and really to open up the world and really make it, what was really important to him and to all of us was to really reflect the world, and especially the post-pandemic world, and what would post-pan people be like, children who grew up without the world as we have known it. And so, in terms of fluidity of, gender and ethnicity and just, everything about them, it was really freeing to be able to just kind of create a whole new world of people.
How would you say if I may ask,
Of course.
you say you're not reading it and your partner's reading it, how did that affect who ended up in it?
I'm in charge.
Got it. So you're right.
No. It really led to some interesting conversations. I mean,
bet.
and ultimately, how to serve the present piece. But I do think it was important to have that knowledge of the book, but be able to build on that as opposed to again be held by it and ruled by it. Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm just gonna.
No, go for it.
Not about League, but I cast Constantine, the series, And this was just, I mean, the fans were just rabid about it. He had to be a Scouser, he had to look like this, to be from this certain part. And I mean, to learn the fans' reaction to it, and I was very much wanted to make the fans happy, believe me.
Yeah.
I was like, they can find out where I live, you know? So that was just a whole other journey. And I mean, luckily we got Matt Ryan, who still plays Constantine in that world, and I don't get anything for that, but
It's a travesty.
Really,
That's a travesty. But I mean, but I imagine it's tricky, like, because of course you want fans to feel like the spirit of the work is captured in the casting, but like, you can't just do things for the fans, obviously. So for Constantine, how did you sort of align like what you thought the fans might want with, again, like what you knew the showrunner or the team was looking for?
Well, I think we found the right answer in Matt Ryan. I mean, he satisfied everyone, and he's just a phenomenal actor, and he physically fit the bill. And we did dye his hair blonde, which, we did look outside of blondes. But I mean, I think really it was just all of us coming together, and at the end of the day, it was Matt. After 10 callbacks, he was always the one.
Yeah.
I have to also say, like, I'm not on Twitter, so when I cast, I mean, when I'm working at, like, I just put it out there, and then I try not to read too much about.
I mean, that
how
seems
people are
the
feeling
healthiest
about
way
it.
to approach it. Yeah.
But not everyone.
I mean, for something like Grease, we were so hyper aware of people's relationship to Grease and that world and that movie. I mean, both movies really, but particularly the first. And it was a little bit of, we wanted to make sure that people knew that we weren't trying to change that property or whatever. We were trying to expand on it and sort of look at certain things from a new lens. But, from the beginning, because we started with an open call, a global open call.
Oh,
Because
wow.
we were looking for fresh faces. I mean, young, triple threats. And so Paramount and our entire team was really excited to find people who hadn't done this before. I mean, none of our 9 of our 10 series regulars hadn't been series regulars before, and like some we pulled out of college, but all of which to say, like, when we put out that flyer for our open call, we were hoping that the Grease fans would sort of not immediately be like, this is a travesty, like, what are you doing? And instead circulate it, and it turned out to be very positive. I mean, we got a huge amount of submissions, and it was shared really widely, so we were really grateful for that love.
What is that like to manage? Have all of you done like something that huge, like a global casting call? That just seems like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but we
It
love
is.
it. We love it. We love it. We love it. And no.
Yeah, I mean, the thrill of giving someone their first opportunity, I think, is probably why we're all here and still doing it. I mean, there's just,
or to be able to deliver the person,
Yeah.
that kind of encapsulates it all. It's what drives us, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, like, what for each of you, what is like one of your proudest moments, or like, I don't know, just one of your most like joyful, whether it was informing this person that their career was maybe about to take off, or informing, the team that you'd found like the perfect person.
I mean, well, I just had a experience recently where usually what happens is, you tell the actors' representatives that they've gotten the job, and then that agent or manager calls the client and gets to tell them, and then, we'll do like a follow-up phone call. But this last project I worked on, the agent and manager had me on the call to do a Zoom with the young woman that we cast who had just gotten out of college. This was her first professional job.
What job was this?
This is for Presumed Innocent on
Okay,
Apple.
great.
And so it was like, you've seen those like videos where like the person, finds out that they got the, and it's like, then the music plays and it's, them crying and all of that. I actually think I cried more than she did. But it was like to have actually been there from like the minute she found out was like, I can't believe after 30 years in this business, that was my first time getting to be there.
wow.
You did?
To give, well,
You
but
did?
to
I do it every time. I get on the phone
Oh, you
with
do
them,
it?
and
We
I
don't.
do it every time.
I don't.
And what we
It's in your
do
contract.
is I fuck with them. So
No way.
every single time, it depends on who it is and what the story is. But we get on and go, "Ugh, Felicia has to ask you one more thing. And it's like, hey, it's either gonna be on Zoom or on the phone. And I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. I hate to put you through this again, but would you be okay going to Pittsburgh? And then they're like, ah! And then we're all like, ah! Or whatever it is. Or like,
that's
yeah,
cute.
I do
We
it
did
every
that
time.
for Grease. It was actually like something that Paramount and our production companies wanted to do, but we, with all of those series regulars, I mean, most of them, save for the couple adults, but we did that. But we did it under the presumption of like, can we get this person back on? We just have one more. They don't have to prepare anything. Like
You guys are mean. You're mean.
No, it's horrible.
I'm
It's
jealous.
horrible.
I've never done
I was
that.
the nice one. Let's just note
was
right
horrible.
here, right now.
Yeah.
They
But-
never forget it.
But we recorded them, and it was like part of like they've like put them out
The
on
EPK
social media. I
stuff.
mean, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah,
but
it's
it
a
was
thing now.
It's so
really. But seeing that reaction after, I mean, particularly with Grease, at least. I mean, we put, like you were saying with concept, I mean, just like round after round. I mean, some of those kids were doing it for like 2 months. Like it was like a huge process. There was so many steps. And I mean, it was just, I think they were so relieved that that was the emotion ultimately. Like they couldn't even process what it meant, but it was very cool.
I was going to say, for your question about like something that was just recent for me on League, after we did the pilot, the producers called me and they said, "Look, we're gonna write in Max's uncle, who was his aunt, and it's a 50-year-old black transmasculine actor. He's going to be a huge part in this. We want to start you early." So I started, and there was none. There's none in SAG. There's 3, and they're young. They're 30. So we did a gigantic search everywhere, but not only just the traditional ways. I was going through books of transmasculine photos and calling the photographer and saying, how can I find this person? And we'd find them. He was a preacher in Seattle, and I had him taped. I
Wow.
mean, I just did it. I did every single thing. And then when we
That's so
got
dumb.
Lee, who had done one, I think Lee lives in San Francisco, and he had done like, he just started, we had to put him in, Taft-Hartley him and everything. And he was very green, and we worked with him a lot, and we put him with a coach and paired him also with an actor to play his love interest that was very experienced and came and did a bunch of Zoom, this is all during the pandemic, Zoom readings with Shante, who played Max, and Saida, who plays her mother, Tony, and just like really like getting them comfortable. We talked to them a lot. We're very close with them right now. And hopefully they'll maybe get nominated for an Emmy. That would be wonderful.
Heck yes.
But that was like really a big thing. And to find somebody who's, incredible. They're on their journey. They're just learning like how to be an actor, but they really are so special. So I'm very proud about Lee and playing Uncle Bertie.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, and I think it kind of connects to something y'all were talking about earlier, which is, I think just hearing these stories, it's very clear to all of us that you guys are obviously very passionate about what you do, and working with these actors, like you really care. And I think I can't remember. I'm sorry. Was it Richard? You were saying you feel like the conception is sometimes that casting directors are like gatekeepers, but you're not. And please speak for this, but you were saying like, yeah, you're an ally for actors, and it's I think Jeannie, you were saying it's a collaborative process.
Yeah,
Can
it's
you guys speak
endlessly
to that?
fascinating to watch actors do their thing, and I love it so deeply that all I want to do is be around it. So I get to have a career that allows me to be right there and to support it and to foster it and to do my best to get the best one to be in our show. So,
But it's also,
well,
I mean,
lucky.
it makes sense. Like, it's deceptive. I mean, we're on, like, opposite sides of the table. Like, it feels like we're on opposite teams, but it's true. Like,
yeah,
it's a
right. It
completely
looks a lot of
collaborative
times like we're
process.
saying no, but if the actors who, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to talk about actors stepping into that conversation with, we so appreciate the vulnerability that is required to go for a part and not get it and to do what they're doing, that if you can remember that we love you, no matter that we're saying no in this moment.
Or even ahead of the no, like just that we're, even though we're on looking at you and it feels like we're on opposing sides, we're actually on the same team. We're rooting for you. Like any note is to make the performance better, to get it closer to what we believe is what the role requires. You know, all of those things are, I understand, can seem, you know, demoralizing or hard or like counter to what was prepared and all the work that an actor put in, but it's really like we're on your team, we're advocating for you, even like in those moments, like we're like pushing you towards that. So
But I have to say that we are a rare breed. I can't speak for all of our colleagues, as many of my friends are actors, and I hear terrible stories from about some of my colleagues. I mean, I'd like to think that they're all as loving and warm and giving as we are, but
I think people have bad days too. You know, you have to give,
bad
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah.
Sure.
But-
or there's stuff going on, like with your, like you could be in a session and you're like, this show just fell apart. And that you know that, and I've had that happen when I did movies all the time, and you're like, I have a full day of sessions, and this movie just fell apart. We can't cancel, we still have to go through this, so.
I think the other thing that's important to remember, or I try to remind actors, especially young actors, but like, it's all building a foundation. So it's not about, it shouldn't be about this job or that job. You know, you're building a foundation to the eventual job, and all you can do is go in and do your best work each and every time. And you know, only one person can get that role. But if you continue to build a foundation of, you know, good work and you know, being prepared and all that, I mean, our job is to remember you, you know, and that again, you just have to be thinking about it long term and not just about, you know, this job in this moment.
Yeah. And I'm sure you all like have, you know, actors that, you know, like you were saying, maybe weren't the right fit for one role. And then can you guys speak to maybe an example of when you were able to work with someone that previously hadn't gotten the role?
I mean, that happens all the time, and I think that's part of our genius in the room is many times a producer will say, I love them, but they're just not right for this. And we're like, hey, well, why don't we have them play this? And they go, oh my God, that's incredible. When I work a lot with Pamela Adlon on Better Things and other stuff, and we do that all the time. I'll send her people and she'll say, all right, I want, what other parts can we cast them all in? Because I love them all,
That
you know,
sounds like
however
her.
it works. So I think that's also a testament to your relationship with the showrunner that hopefully is, you know, one that's communicative. And there's other times where I say, like, I hate when they cast it in the writer's room and they just tell us that's our choice. And I'm always going back saying, can you just let me know what you've liked about other people? Because maybe something will come up later and we can go back to that person. And I did a pilot, Californication, I don't know how many years ago now, 16 years ago or something. And that showrunner I've worked with many times since. And we still go back to people that we saw in the pilot.
Wow.
We still talk about,
That's cool.
and we will bring them up for stuff. So it, like Jeannie said, you know, it's the longevity. It's you're setting yourself up for more things to come.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, how have you guys like honed your skills like in these roles that you have? I mean, I imagine a lot of it's just experience, but I mean, hearing you all speak, it obviously you have some tricks and some just ways of being that make you really successful and effective in your role. Like, can you speak to that at all?
I would say two things for me personally, and I think probably for all of us here on the panel. One is providing as safe a space for actors as possible, because as Richard was saying, you know, you're calling on people to be vulnerable and be willing to try things in a room that maybe they didn't come in prepared to do, but you have, information on the character that, you know, has either morphed from what it had originally been, or they haven't gotten to read a whole script, so you have information. So, you know, you're giving them direction and things in the room, and asking them to try things that may be a little outside their comfort zone. So providing a safe and caring space. And then I think one of the things that I've learned over the many years is when to go to battle with producers over somebody, and
And the ways in which you can go to battle.
Yeah,
Like
and what-
manipulate,
right.
confront,
Yep.
go around.
Yep.
All, like more tools in my toolbox. I used to just get mad at them for being dumb enough to not be of my opinion.
Yep.
Now I go, oh, that's great. Okay, well then I kind of come around again or whatever.
Yeah, and deciding, which swords you're going to fall on, and because
Yes.
you can't fight on everything.
And at the end of the day, it's their thing to have
exactly.
to decide.
Totally.
Well, and that's sort of going a little bit back to the adaptation too. Of I mean, yes, you can, you want to put your own stamp on it, but you also have to understand it. Really, you are serving this other person's vision, and
Yeah,
so
at the end of the day, it needs to be something that they can embrace and they can feel as creatively invested in. And that's part of the reason I think casting is devalued often, because by the time they have finished creating it, they have forged an authentic connection between director and actor, and that feels completely real. And that means we've done our job. But our job is to kind of to be the garden in which that happens.
It's beautiful, Richard.
Thank you very much. I've had many years alone in a room to think about it.
Well, and I liken it to giving childbirth. Like, well, first you're like dating really heavily with the producer and the writer or whatever, and you're spending all this super, super intense time. And then you get pregnant and you have the baby, and then you send it out into the world and you never hear from him again. Except when they need
So
money.
ungrateful.
Yeah.
So ungrateful.
I have a funny story. Oh, sorry. No, just years ago, I was doing a short film, and it was kind of a famous actor was directing it, and he literally wrote this short so he could date 50 women. It was literally him and 50 women in it. Wow. And he disagreed with everything that I said. Like, no matter what I said, he would say the opposite. So I just started saying
The opposite.
Yes. And then I would get
fun.
who I wanted. And I was
Fantastic.
like, this is genius.
Yes, you learn shit like that.
You go back to middle school
done that.
tactics a lot of the time, I find.
It's simple. I mean, the producers are not more complicated people than anyone else. It's just, I
Right.
mean, you're talking about like a lot of money is at stake and like big projects and a lot of passion, but like ultimately it's just. What?
It's okay. It's fine.
But it really is just about like, okay, what is our objective? What do we think? But it's also, to Richard's point, like I can only speak personally, like taking my ego out of it, because I can get really righteous. I can get really
Me too.
right. I can get really right, and like other people
Because
can
you
get
are.
really wrong.
You are right.
I mean, I know that.
yeah.
You
Of
know
course.
that. But like, they don't know
Dumbos.
that. But so it's sort of like, okay, have I done everything I can to make this actor's performance the best, who I think would be really valuable to this project, could be really fantastic, could be really exciting. Have I done everything? And like, if it's still not landing, then like, I have to trust, like, I am still of service to this production, to these people. And so, I have to trust a little bit, but I really ditto also to what Jeannie said in terms of the making it a safe space. And that also translates now, as everyone knows, like there's much more self-taping, particularly at early stages of an audition process. And so we've had to, my partner and I have had to, figure out how to translate that, how we create a safe space when we're not physically in the same space, whether that, I mean, certainly that's easier on Zoom, but even in like instructions or the way that we communicate a request for a self-tape is just sort of like availing ourselves and trying to support as much as possible. And I do think that's like the most important part, just making sure that actors feel supported and are able to trust us, so that if they do go further, they can give the best performance in that first audition. And if they do go further, they trust us, they listen to us, they listen to our notes, they listen to the producers, they feel grounded. That's, I think, the best way to help.
That's such a good point. I didn't think about how do you create a safe space when it's self-taping. Like, so how do you do that?
I mean, I wish I had more specifics than even just like that. Those generalities, but like
it's two ways. Like I try to be really helpful in the notes about the character. I try to write an excellent, as opposed to a generic, character description. I will, depending on where we are in the process, make myself available to talk if they have any questions or whatever. Those are things we do. I bet there's others, but those.
Yeah, everyone has my number. Everyone has my number. So I'm always like, just call me. Let's talk about it. And I've done that even before self-taping because I just want everyone to do so well.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do that before the night of a test. I would get on the phone with everybody and talk about what they were wearing. They would show me pictures that we'd FaceTime, or I just was very much, didn't want anything like that to ruin their opportunity because someone didn't like their pants. Because I have had that happen before.
Yikes.
I also like to, when I meet, and this was more before the pandemic, but when actors who lived out of town would self-tape, whenever I had a chance to meet them, I would always say, I just want you to know, I watched your tape. I saw, you were seen. Because I think so often it just felt like, it was just going out into the ether. And especially now with so many people doing it, I just try to validate that as often as I can.
Yeah, it's all of those things, and the notes and availing ourselves and making ourselves as accessible as possible, and the very often, I mean, much more often than I think we're given credit for. Like we try to give as much time as possible, from when we make the request to the due date. I think it can sometimes seem like it's a very short turnaround. If it is, it's out of our control. But that changes things because we're of the mind that if you can get it in early, then it gives us a chance to do those adjustments. That again, it's about approximating the process as it was before, and sort of I think people think nobody watches this, or I don't get to try it again, or I don't get notes. And we would love to do that. Sometimes the process doesn't allow for that. Sometimes the timeline doesn't allow for that. But, when it does, we will take advantage of that, definitely.
And I think there's some casting directors that are almost afraid to say to their producers things like, I can't have that to you tomorrow. I need to give these actors a little more time, or this is too much material for a first round. I mean, I'm the first person to be like, this is too much, or this scene doesn't work. Can you guys write something else? Because we'll never cast anybody off of this if we need them to be funny. I do think that a lot of our colleagues do sort of just go with what they know, which is okay, this is what we're supposed to do. This is what they want. But this is our part of it. We should feel confident enough to say to them what the timeline is, not let them dictate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, can you guys speak to, you were talking about, which hills to die on or which swords to fall on. Do you guys have any examples of when you were you know what, this is the hill I will die on, and I'm not going to take no for an answer? Yeah, safe space.
Very safe.
Camera's off.
Thank you. No, I think we were talking about this earlier. I think we're all really great, at least the four of us are really grateful that, this concept of inclusivity is becoming less arduous and less we have to explain it constantly. It's becoming more built in, more natural to a process on any given project. I will say with Grease, at least, one of the things that was so exciting from our first meeting with Annabelle Oakes, the showrunner, was that she wanted, her vision for this show was, she wanted more body inclusivity, more diversity, which was all grounded in research and what was reflective of, Southern California in 1954, truly. And she just wanted all of these different, she wanted to be much more multifaceted than the Grease that we knew. And we were so jazzed about it. It was for the first time we were totally, it's not going to be this uphill battle, So those are the kinds of things. I also just a very specific other project. We were doing an Amazon pilot that didn't ultimately go with Bridget Everett.
I
and
loved that pilot. I texted you right away. It was brilliant.
So good.
All of the Downs kids.
I know it was.
Kids.
Yeah, so there was a very sizable supporting cast of actors with Down syndrome. The characters were all. Bridget Everett worked at this home for adults with Down syndrome. It was such a beautiful show. It was so fucking funny. Really perfect. But like we went in, and again, this was not a battle because we went through it with integrity, and the producers were down from the beginning. But we went in from the first meeting like we're not compromised, like we're not casting people. But that was like a conversation we had to have. You know, like internally at least, like we're all on the same page at least. So you know, things like that. Like we don't want to do things in an arbitrary way or compromise our morals. You know, that's just not what we're into anymore.
On a much more, go.
Mine's kind of, I'm sure it's not the best example, but it's the first one that came into my head. But like, I did the pilot of the L Word, and we did tests, and Catherine Monig, who is this kind of Lothario, sexy, but you know, she sleeps with everybody. And she came in and she did her test, and the straight white guy who was the head of the network at the time was like, I don't see it. And I was like, what? And I didn't confront him, but I went to the showrunner and I was like, you have to make him see, kind of girding her loins so she can go back in there and get it done. And the chemistry of that actually, I think, is what made that pilot. So.
Yeah.
Mine's so much superficial than that. So I'm a little embarrassed
That's usually
to say,
where I
but
live, so it's fine.
No, I mean, I've just I've died on some hills of actors who were casting in more comedic roles who've only done drama, and going, but they're actors, like you know, just to give them the chance. So. Rachel Brosnahan and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Eben Moss Backrack and In the Bear were both, you know, people that we had to sort of, I had to fight for a little bit just because they were like, yeah,
how did you fight for Rachel Brosnahan? In what way?
I just was like, she's such a phenomenal, yeah. But she's not funny. She hasn't, and it was a cast contingent, which meant like they had to cast that role before they were going to decide whether or not to do the series. And, you know, so it was like, no, you know, just even looking at her resume, like there was like ruling her out from the get-go. And it was like, well, how about we actually like give her a shot?
Yeah, totally.
And then, you know, one time it was like, and then by the second, it was like, okay. And then they had to trust then that not only what did she do it just in the audition, but that she was going to be able to sort of grow and go from there. But.
Well, thank you for fighting the good fight, y'all. That's like, yeah, it's huge. Part of my excitement about doing this panel was just like learning more about what y'all do and how you make the magic happen. Because I think there's not like I think for the most part, it's like the stereotypes you see in movies and shows about the industry where it's like, you know, someone not even paying attention to the actor, like staring down at the table, you know. Have you ever seen a depiction of someone doing casting in a film or TV show that you're like, that's accurate? Anytime?
I've played it
What?
on shows.
What?
I've played a casting director in like 4 things I've worked on, but because I'm not SAG, I can't speak. And every time I'm like, this is not what I would do. Like, I'm like, this is not at all how it would be. And they're like, but in my mind, as the person who wrote it, that's what it seems like to me. And here I am going like, but I'm like the mute person. Like, it's ridiculous. So,
are you at least like looking encouraging, or do they're like sit there and be stony and silent? Oh, okay.
I'm on people's reels. It's hilarious.
The only thing that comes to mind is in Girls when Andrew Reynolds at the end, like I think it's in the last season when he goes on like this like open call for the thing, and I do think that was like a very encouraging environment for it. He like goes through multiple callbacks, like I think it's multiple days or at least like a full day, and like they're really cheering for him. Like I feel like he doesn't ultimately get it or something, but it's really like encouraging, which is more than I can say for a lot of other projects. I don't know why that's coming to mind.
I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I was like racking my brain. I was trying to think.
Table out there and the one camera. It's like I mean, I know that's more of maybe theater. It looks like that. I don't know, Broadway. Our rooms usually look almost more like a therapist's office in a way. They're like we try to make it cozy and it's colorful and there's a background. Like
Just
they never have
chairs.
it what it looks like real.
Yeah, nothing between us and the actors.
Yeah.
Because because you want to feel that connection if you're going to be in the room.
See, that's really good to know because you don't see that. Like, I think
No,
all of us were picturing that like white clinical room with
Right,
lights
behind
and
a table.
Or like
Folding
American
table.
Idol. Like I think like people
Yes.
like I think it's like
With
they
numbers on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at your slide like this. I mean, I always read with the actors that I'm like standing if they're standing, I'm sitting if they're standing.
Totally.
Whenever I'm off book, I'm like in the scene with them.
Yeah, because I act with them, and if they don't, if they need to act at least as good as me. You know what I mean? So I look them in the eye and see what they've got to tell me.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I do. My husband's an actor, and he does tell a story though about a casting director he used to go in for on a lot of comedy stuff, who would try to add a button to the scene so that they had. So they always
Oh,
ended
no,
with
so
like
they got
the
the
funnier
laugh?
line. He was like,
Loser.
"You got a job. Like,
Yeah.
can I just get a shot?"
I think I've
Or
done that.
another time, or another casting director who he was doing reading with, and she kept laughing really hard at all his lines, which was really nice, but there was no flow to the scene. So it was like, and then he would go into like, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, but if
But
we
we
could
gotta get-
actually,
yeah.
we got to do the scene.
It's funny. Doesn't make for a
You
good
can, I guess,
tape.
go too far.
I think I've tried to add a button a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm so in it. Like sometimes I'm so
Of
in it. I'm like, well, I
course.
just
Oh,
need.
you're the button ad.
It was me.
Jeannie wasn't gonna say it.
She looked at me. I knew it was me.
Well, now I think we all want a TV show about about casting. Like you guys
Yes,
could be
we
the
do.
stars.
Yes, we do.
Who's paying?
I'm offer only.
Oh, you're not going to audition?
This is
She's off
Okay.
her only.
I get to say who's playing me.
And who would that be?
Yeah, who would it? Yeah, let's do that. Let's play that game. Cast yourselves on the TV show.
Edie Falco.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a little more New York than me, but
A
you
little
know.
more. Yeah, that's good. I don't know who it would be for me. I don't know. No? Well, it'd be Pamela Adlon for you then, wouldn't
I
it?
mean,
You know.
I do her. She does me. It's easy.
Yeah. Flip the script.
Well, think about it. This
Okay, we
panel's
will.
not over yet, so and we can maybe take suggestions from the audience near the end. But
But usually I'm appalled at who people think I am because I have an internal self-image of like, that I'm this way, but I'm not.
that's why I'm giving you the option to cast
I
yourself
know,
first.
I'm not
You could think
gonna
about
take
it.
Advantage.
I did last year cast somebody who for themselves. I had to cast somebody. Well, actually, in Better
What do you
Things,
mean?
I'm casting her whole family that I know. But I did this show, a pilot for I don't know, FX or Comedy Central. I forget who ended up doing it. Called Meaty, and it was Samantha Irby's book based on her book. So we were casting her a little bit younger. And it's in her latest book, she talks about that process, about what it was like for her to look at auditions of her. And it was really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Are you guys able to so I was thinking about how when I read a book, I picture the character in my head and, I think for a lot of us fan casting is really fun. It's just a fun game to play. Does that happen to you if you're say reading a book that you love? Do you turn that part of your brain off or is it just always on? Are you picturing, oh, I would totally cast this person as this main character?
Yeah, I do it. Yeah.
Yeah?
That's often how I read a book. I'll put a placeholder person in there. Some good actor that I'd like.
Yeah. I mean, have y'all read a book recently that you were like, you know what? I would love for this to be adapted and I know exactly who I'd want to cast or, anything like that?
I think I don't know that I mean, obviously any script I read, I do it immediately. Books, I feel like less so, but I will read a book and be like, that should, someone should write that. Someone should adapt that. I read the Poisonwood Bible just recently, Barbara Kingsolver. Incredible book. Pulitzer Prize, I'm not
No big deal.
I'm not the first one.
No
to
big
say
deal.
it. But it's those are incredible roles. It's oh my God, if someone wrote that, whoever got to play those roles is so lucky. I'll do things like that.
Yeah, I think same. Reading scripts I will, but not books. But I sometimes have to watch a movie or some shows more than once because I lose the story because I'm so busy watching the acting.
Yeah.
Or someone will say, what did you think visually or that? And I'm like, I'm not
Don't
sure
remember.
what you're yeah,
Didn't
exactly.
Didn't notice. Didn't notice.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give you guys some time. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask our panelists? Yes, ma'am.
When it comes to like remakes, if there's a remake of an adaptation, how much does the previous performance maybe cloud your thinking? You know, I'm just thinking, for example, with it, the way that, you know, they went through the casting process, the kids first, and then they had the kids say who they would like as their adult counterparts.
Wait, the kids cast the parts?
I think they just asked the questions.
Oh, I was like, wait.
The kids were in charge.
Yeah. So, I mean, does it stay in the back of your mind, hey, they were better than, you know, original version?
Yeah, because you're like I did a remake, a Hairspray, which was a remake of the old movie, and you're trying to find what was awesome about those characters and put them in these new bodies. So yeah, I think it's part of what we do.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think it also depends on if that adaptation is, you know, sort of bringing it into present day, and so
What are
how
you
are
trying
you?
to do with this? Are you
Yeah,
trying
with the remake, are you trying to say something new? Are you trying to present the story in a new way? And that can be freeing because you're not in any way kind of beholden. You're trying to tell a different story, but certainly there are iconic roles. I can't imagine like trying to do a new version of something that's so like, not that I can think of what it is right now, but like a majorly iconic role.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, I was glad that they weren't doing like Grease the series and like trying to cast, you know, Danny Zuko and.
Well, yeah, but also like I'm just glad. Thank you for not casting like 35-year-olds as high schoolers.
Thank you.
Yes, that was.
This gal
definitely-
grew up thinking I was gonna look like Sandy when I was 17.
Yeah, that's a casting
No.
miscue, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm glad that way of casting is gone.
Me too.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was our challenge on League, was people expected it to be the movie. And I mean, I don't know if that's a question coming up, but it seems tied in here now. I just remember the second I started working on it, I was getting calls from agents saying, I have got your Tom Hanks. And I was like, did you read the script? And they said, yeah, I read it. I said, I mean, there's no Tom Hanks in this. There's a guy that comes in like maybe episode 3, but so you haven't read the script. And no, this is a very different version. This is, you know, more true to the real stories. It's 2 stories. We have the Black experience and then the Peaches experience. And like, you know, I had to explain that over and over again because everyone just assumed it was the movie.
Yeah, for sure. Who else had a question? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Hi. Oh, hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm an associate casting director.
Yes, hello.
I am always fascinated to learn from you. How did you get to become casting directors? And when did you know you wanted to be one? And a little about your journey to becoming one. Thanks.
Anybody want to start?
Oh, and what about David Hyde Pierce to play you?
What about what?
David Hyde Pierce to play you?
Oh, there we go.
That's pretty good.
She's in casting.
That was- I like that one.
Yeah, that's good. I'll take that.
I was an actor for a minute and realized that I needed to have a little more stability in my life. So was lucky enough to do an internship with an off-Broadway theater company. And it was initially to just kind of find out how the business side of things worked. But I found that I loved it, and I still got to be creative and use the things I learned as an actor in terms of being able to talk to actors in casting, be able to share a shared language. I found tremendously helpful. So that was my very short story.
Anybody else?
I bounced around a bit, and then I was also an actor when I was younger, so I think I had reference. I mean, like we were talking about, I think a lot of people don't exactly either know casting exists or know what it is, but I sort of had a reference for it. And my aunt, who I'm very close to, actually is a casting director in fashion, like for shoots and shows and stuff, and I thought that was going to be what I wanted to do. So I did that briefly. I worked with her, and I was like, oh God, this is terrible world. It's not what I want to do at all. But I did like the process. I was like, oh, this makes sense. And so I researched. I was like, how do I get into this? I reached out to anyone who had any proximity to the entertainment industry at all, and ultimately got an internship with Bernie Telsey at Telsey and Company, and never left. They never got rid of me until I left to start my own office.
Oh, good for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yep.
I was a hairdresser on Long Island, but before that, I was actually an actor as a kid through like all my school time. Up to like 7th grade, I was in all the plays. We had a great theater company in my town on Long Island. I went to beauty school out of high school, was a hairdresser on Long Island. My brother started doing low-budget horror movies, and he got me involved with them. I'd do hair and makeup. I would do props. I did art department. He would leave me in Canada. I'd cast the movie, crew the movie. I'd be knocking on people's doors. Can we use your house for location? He would come back and say, did Felicia hire all the crew because everyone looks like Rob Lowe and there's no girls? I was like, hey, I'm 19 and I'm single and I'm ready to mingle in Montreal. So anyway, he moved to LA. I followed him. I got a bunch of jobs here from friends I went to high school with. It's like 23 years old. Working, I was a puppeteer on Gremlins 2. I worked on a Disney ride. I was a PA for the first time, even though I'd been like producing movies in Canada. And I did all these jobs, and then I got a job working for Jackie Birch on a movie that my brother wrote. So I was going to be the art department coordinator, and I didn't get the job, but then I got that job working with her, and she's like, I'm doing all these movies, Die Hard 2, Predator 2, stay with me, I'll train you. And I learned from her, and that's something I did want to say, like the best casting directors really worked with like great casting directors. It's the same with agents and managers, people who like just decide to do this. You have to learn from somebody this job. It doesn't just like, there's so much to it that nobody knows. So luckily I did work for like, I think one of the best. I mean, she did 16 Candles, she did all the John Hughes movies and then all the big Die Hard movies, and it was a great experience. And I've gotten to hire her later in life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was an actor too.
I thought you were going to say you were also a hairdresser on Long Island.
I was a hairdresser on Long Island.
Yeah.
Yes.
Played one.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
played one.
Me and what's that?
David Hyde Pierce
Yeah,
is
me and
understudy.
David Hyde Pierce. Any other questions? Yes. The microphone is coming to you.
This has been great. You've talked a lot about working with new and fresh talent and how rewarding that is. Curious, where is the most unconventional place you found your gem? Like I hear stories about some of the cast of Euphoria being found by a casting director on the streets of New York. So yeah, just curious if you have any of those
fun.
stories.
Yeah, fun.
Restaurant.
Yeah. Walking through the streets of Binghamton, New York, because that's where it was set, and we just like found people who were walking down the street and asked them to audition. That was one.
Did they believe you, or were they like, "Oh, sure, sure"?
Yeah, right. Like
I'll come back
I
with
had
you, sure.
flyers, and I had my like professional face on. You know what I mean? Like I wanted, yeah, because sometimes, yeah, right. I was doing a movie where we were casting Latinx actors, you know, people for, and this white guy handing out flyers in a grocery store. A lot of people were like, "What are you doing?" And I don't trust you. So so it made me remember. You know, I tried to make myself extra trustable.
That's what they all say, but sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys?
For me, it's more like when I cast the real world. I mean, that's when I was like going to raves or going to those weddings.
I'm sorry, you
venues.
cast the real world?
I did season 2 LA. So we
Okay.
were looking, and I had Edie Belasco was my assistant, and
Oh, fun.
I would have, and then
Was that Norma
Laura
Corky?
Gaddis, and
No.
she would take her rollerblades and go through the universities, and just like we just went everywhere looking for people and targeting cities and targeting careers. We wanted somebody who was going to get married, so we went to all those wedding events, you know, those big expos and stuff like that. But the raves were really fun. I would go by myself. I'd find like the biggest, scariest guy, and I'd say, "You're my assistant today. Oh, I'm doing this thing for MTV. You're my assistant. Give him up." I said, "Here's a Polaroid. Go find the hottest girls here and bring them over to me. You're gonna get so lucky tonight." And they would be like, and they would be like, so like, "Hey, I got you this girl." It was so cute, so cute.
Wow.
Can I ask a question of the audience?
Yeah, sure.
Does anyone have, in terms of the casting adaptations, like someone who got cast in something you love that you either thought was amazing or terrible?
Good question.
Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption.
Uh-huh.
In the novel, he was an Irishman with red hair in Stephen King's book, and then they made a little wink in the movie, and you know, when he says, "Why do they call you Red?" he just kind of goes, "Maybe it's because I'm Irish." And that was
Oh, that's so good.
Stephen King's original novel.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I love
Also, I was going to say
Yeah.
Clark Gregg, Edie, Tom Hardy, and Melissa McCarthy.
Clark Gregg.
Wow.
By the way, Melissa
That's
McCarthy,
good,
I
dude.
cast her in a part that I was offered. I cast Melissa. So I was the casting director on this little movie, and the directors came to me and they said they'd heard me reading the whole time, and they're like, "We want you to play this part." And I was like, "I can't do." I said, "I'm not an actor. I will freeze up." And it was this little movie with Christina Ricci. I was like, "I will find you someone better than me," and I cast Melissa McCarthy in it.
Nice.
So that's right.
By the way, are you available for my next project?
Very good.
Well,
I also work in reality, so
There you go.
cast a few talents.
Well, I'm really bummed because we have to wrap up, and I don't want
know.
to. But yeah, this was a blast. Thank you guys for being here, and thanks y'all for being
It's the best
here.
panel, right?
This was great. Thank you so much.